Welcome back to the Tavern, World Builders. Today we are talking about the YA paranormal romance novel. Have you guessed what it is yet? It's Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. We are going to be focusing specifically on the first novel. However, we may also talk about the other novels in the series or the movies. So just consider this a general spoiler warning for everything Twilight related. With that said, you should definitely grab an ale, zero proof always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hello.
And Christiana.
Hi.
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
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 So, many of you may be familiar at least with the broad strokes of this novel, but I've got a little description here for you to refresh your memory in case you haven't read or watched it since you were 15, or maybe you've never read or watched this incredible, both good and bad series. The book starts off when 17-year-old Bella Swan moves from Arizona to dreary, rainy Forks, Washington, to live with her father, Charlie. She hates the small, rainy town of Forks, but wants to give her mother, Renee, some time and space to enjoy her relationship with her new husband. On Bella's first day at Forks High School, she notices 5 strikingly beautiful students: Edward, Emmett, and Alice Cullen, and Rosalie and Jasper Hale. She learns that they are all the adopted children of Dr. Carlyle and Esme Cullen. Seated together in biology class, Bella observes certain strange things about her classmate Edward. His skin feels ice cold, and his eyes appear to change color from gold to black. At a weekend's beach party, Bella meets Jacob Black, a Quileute teen who tells her of a indigenous legend that says the Cullens are vampires, albeit ones who hunt animals rather than people. Jacob admits he doesn't believe this story, but his father Billy does. One day, when Bella and her friends drive to Port Angeles to shop, Bella wanders away by herself. As 4 men begin to harass her, Edward roars up in his car and rescues her. He admits that he can read everyone's mind except hers, and says that he knew what the men were planning. On the way home, Bella admits to Edward that she knows the Cullens are vampires. He is surprised when she says that his being a vampire doesn't matter to her. Edward and Bella grow closer, and Edward tells her that his siblings, with the exception of Alice, don't support their relationship. If Edward were to lose control and harm Bella, it would endanger his entire family. Edward admits that he tried to stay away from her at first, but he found it impossible. They are both too drawn to each other to care about anything else.
True love!
True love! Dun,
True
dun, dun. Danger strikes when 3 nomadic vampires who do not observe the Cullens' vegetarian diet of animal blood pass through Forks. Intrigued by Edward's pet human, one of them, James, makes it his goal to hunt and kill Bella, and very nearly succeeds. Threatening her mother's life, James gets Bella to come to him and attacks her. The Cullens arrive just in time to save her life. The novel ends with Bella and Edward in love, but in disagreement about Bella's future. She wants Edward to turn her into a vampire so that they can be together forever and her humanity will never endanger his family again, but he is staunchly opposed to the idea, as he wants her to be able to enjoy her human life. So, happy hour! I believe we have all read this novel before, and Christiana at least has seen the films.
I've seen the films, too.
I saw the first film, and I don't think I saw any of the other films, and even the first film is kind of like a fever dream to me. I watched it, once in high school, but I've read the books, a ton of times. Reading them again was fun.
Movies. You have to watch them.
I keep seeing clips of them on TikTok, and I'm just nothing about these films makes me want to watch them.
No, you have to, for the listeners, we wanted to cover Twilight because it's one of those rare worlds or stories that all of us love and absolutely hate at the same time. It's objectively so horrible that I know at least Emma and I are totally obsessed with it.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad, but it's so good.
I actually think Stephanie Meyer is a good writer, at least on a line level. She writes some good prose. Her description is really good. The story building also, I don't think it's awful. Some of the reasons why it's bad are the problematic elements, the treatment of the Quileute tribe is sketch.
Which is a real tribe.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Which we want to point out. So anything in that book that's talking about the Quileute tribe, the creation story regarding, she took the creation story from that indigenous community and kind of bastardized it into sexy werewolves, which is not an okay thing to do at all.
Not cool.
No. But, like, I don't know, other than that, I don't think, and, like,
there's a couple other problematic things,
Yes.
like Edward being 200 years old, 100-something.
And
And Bella being a teenager. He's an old man, and he's like, I can't stay away from you.
But he's also not even human. Like, of all of the issues, it's like him being old. It's like the lifespans are. I don't know. I don't actually have a problem with that. Especially
also,
as it's
technically,
written in this.
his brain stopped developing at 17.
Yeah.
Does he still have a teenage brain? Like,
according to the lore, yes.
Yeah,
you're like frozen in time.
Frozen.
It's a little bit more.
And like, I don't know. They're different species, so I feel like before the age gap, there's all these other like.
There's a lot of other problems.
There's still some problematic things where he like takes away a lot of Bella's age.
Oh, he's he's very abusive.
Yeah.
In reality, if you actually look at it.
I've never been a huge like Edward girly, but rereading the series, like I know he's like, you know, can be controlling and that's not great, but it's also not as bad as sometimes I remember it to be. Like there's a scene where he's like especially in book 3 when he's worried about her hanging out with werewolves, and there's a scene where he like dismantles her truck so she can't go see him. But then after that, he apologized. He says, that was wrong. I'm not going to do that anymore. You do get to make decisions for yourself. So, like, you also kind of got to be like, well, he's growing, or like, you know, like, I don't know. I think characters have room for growth. And
he does recognize this is a problem and he should not be pursuing this woman. And like, he tries not to.
Yeah.
Like, so
but also he did break into her room and watch her sleep first.
Yeah, that's very creepy.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes, 100%.
Depending on which angle. He's definitely our problematic queen, and I'm 100% Team Edward.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I loved these books in high school. And it was like a late teenage years and then like early college years. I loved these books. And I was Team Edward at the time. I can't decide if I am now. But it was really interesting rereading them because I remember feeling such strong emotions when I read this book as a teenager and being like, I was so into it and like felt what Bella was feeling, and reading it now I'm just like, I got nothing. I'm not feeling the things that I remember feeling. That was really interesting to me.
Yeah, there's a reason it was a phenomena at the time in YA, right? Like I remember reading the second book where Edward decides, oh, I'm too dangerous to be around you. He takes her out into the middle of the forest and dumps her.
In the films,
which is like,
in the books, he does it. In the books, they're within sight of her house, and she wanders into the woods afterwards.
True.
It was like a book movie diversion where it's like...
But I still remember reading that, and like, it's the first time in my life I threw a book across my room because I was so, like... I was like, how dare he do? And I was like sobbing reading it. And I was like, that's so, they're meant to be together forever. Like, you know, 15-year-old hormones going all over the place, being like, how dare they? Like, just losing my mind.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, just having that real personal example of, oh, teenage brains are different than...
They really are.
Yeah. I knew that logically, but like, just to have that experience. Yeah.
And it is interesting because, like, that's definitely, I think, one of the reasons why it connects with, like, because, you know, all of your emotions when you're a teen are so heightened, and it's, like, the first time you're going through these emotions and stuff like that. But it's almost, it's like, Twilight is like that, but, like, what if you thought, you know, the person that at 16 you think is your soulmate actually then was your soulmate, you know? Like, that's, I think, what Twilight taps into, is that idea of, like, oh, this intense love, but it's actually real, and it's not just a weird teenage thing. Or not weird teenage thing, but, you know, it's not just, like, an over-emotional teenage thing. It's, like, actually fated soulmates, destinies,
also,
stuff, which is interesting.
Emma, you mentioned the writing at a line level. I constantly see people poo-pooing on Twilight at the line level, like, oh, it's bad writing. And I was reading and I'm like, this is just as good as a lot of the other YA books I've read. I didn't really particularly think it was that awful, at a prose level.
Not at all.
So I find that interesting that people say that all the to
you know, Shakespeare or Vonnegut or like, you know, a super intense thing. But it's a YA novel.
It's perfectly fine. And so, like, there's some lines that are silly, like people love to quote. There's one in New Moon where it's like, the line is, Arrow laughed. Ha ha ha. He giggled. So it's like that line objectively sucks because it's the same, but there's also lines that are great. And it's like, that's kind of like any book where you're going to have one or two lines that, are not stellar. We have, and I think we will talk a lot still about like the reasons why Twilight is insane and problematic and bizarre. But like a lot of the hate it gets is just because teen girls love it.
Teen girls like anything teen girls
likes
like
more than shitting on teen girls, right? So it's like a lot of the hatred comes from like, oh, well, teen girls love this, so it must be awful. And it's like, well, no, you can hate it for things that it actually does. Don't hate it for like, unjustified
that always drives me up the wall because I'm like, there are genuinely a lot of valid critiques. And you're just going on like, well, it's dumb. Oh, who am I going to pick? And I'm like, that's a fun fantasy. Like, why are we dogging on teenage girls for liking the idea of being desired?
Triangle.
Yeah.
I mean, we misuse that word. It's not. It's more like
a love spear or a love. Yeah.
A love but I don't mind that trope and why it was.
Yeah.
I liked it at the time.
It makes a lot of sense in why, because I remember being a deeply self-conscious teenager. And this concept of not just one person liking me, which already would be thrilling in my personal life, 2 people like me, and I get to make a decision about it. Like, I'm not just self-conscious, like, I'm self-conscious, and then this concept of, like, being so desirable that I get my pick of the litter to some extent is, like, such a wild fantasy to partake in, right?
Very funny rereading it. And everyone's in love with Bella. It's not just
everyone. Everyone's in love with Bella.
Yeah. It's like all the people she meets at school, everyone's obsessed with her. What's his name? Tyler, thinks they're going to the prom together and won't take no for it. It's just, it was very funny because I'm like, this is, I could see my teenage self really liking this because I felt quite invisible and being like,
that idea of being like seen and desired in multiple contexts is a very, I think,
it is a fantasy
real thing.
And like I think the story also justifies it to a certain extent. Like, it is kind of over the top, but there is something to, a new person moves to town, you've been with the same 20 kids your whole life, and suddenly there's a new person who you have it's probably like everybody's dated everybody at that point. Hey, there's somebody new. And like even the love triangle, I think it's kind of like, because it also doesn't like, because I think if Edward had never left, there would be no love triangle because she's clearly so obsessed with him, she'd never have room for anybody else. But it's like he was gone, she was heartbroken, and then she finds solace in somebody else, and it's like that gets messy and complicated, and it's like a little more deserved, which I think is good.
Yeah.
But clearly we're gonna have trouble keeping ourselves to our timeline because we're already like so far into this. So let's hop on over to the meat of our discussion and get into tavern talk. So we will be talking about Twilight through the lens of paranormal romance, because that's what it is. I do believe that this story is like a hair's breadth away from horror, and it would be an incredible horror story if Stephanie Meyer had
if it was from Charlie's point of view, like her dad's point of view, this random guy, your kid is constantly sobbing uncontrollably over him, and he just like floats into the room or drives up in your driveway with an Audi and is like, "I'm taking your daughter." And then just fucks off.
And then he finds out it's a vampire. Like,
horrifying.
Horror.
Or even if at no point he figured out vampires were involved or supernatural stuff, I think that would make it even more horror. Like, that's the most horrifying thing. Like, my kid is like, she's finally moving in with me and finally living with me. And then she's obsessed with this guy and she's losing her mind and she's jumping off cliffs and she decides she doesn't want to live with me anymore, and she comes back with a bunch of broken bones. Her boyfriend brings her back with a bunch of broken bones, and then she marries him. Like, if you look at the timeline, it's like literally like 2 years.
Yeah. The timeline of Twilight is bonkers. The whole series, takes place over like 18 months, and he's gone for like 6 of them. So it's like they're only together for like less than a year before they're like married, and like it's a wild storyline.
Hard for me to judge because I also did not date my current husband. I have never had any other husbands.
Is there something you'd like to share?
I'm not planning on having any other husbands. We dated for less than a year, but we were also in our 30s, and they're teenagers, so
he didn't abandon you in the woods for 6 months in the middle of your relationship.
I forgot that Bella goes cliff diving. That's hilarious.
Yes.
In book
I know,
2.
right? Like, just insane stuff. Anyways.
It's wild. So let's chat about this as a paranormal romance.
What makes something a paranormal romance?
Obviously, romance is
Okay.
that one is straightforward.
Yes.
But I feel like for people who maybe haven't experienced the genre before, it's the difference between this is a story with romance and this is a romantic story with vampires, right? Like it's not a vampire story that happens to have romance. This is a romance story that happens to have vampires.
Yeah,
like that's
the romance
kind of
is
the
like
the
often you
plot.
have B plot
It's what
romances.
moves the story.
Yeah.
Totally. And like that's also I think one of the big hallmarks of the romance genre in general is like fantasy. Like lower like like the not fantasy like the supernatural elements, but the fantasy of your mind, the like this is what I would love my life to look like, or isn't this like alluring or whatever. Like the fantasy in your mind is a huge part of I think what makes romance appealing. And like that's, as we've already talked about, is definitely a big thing in here. Like
well, yeah, and being in Bella's head and understanding like just how obsessed she is with Edward really solidifies that.
Yeah.
So does paranormal romance have to end happily? Because we had talked earlier this season about gothic romance and what's the film name that we discussed?
Crimson Peak.
Yes, Crimson Peak.
Which is also kind of a paranormal romance.
It doesn't end happily though. It's
makes it not a romance, makes it a
I would
horror,
say a paranormal romance kind of has to have a happy ending. At least not a horrible ending. Like, it could be that, like, she grows and decides, I don't want to be with Edward anymore. I think gothic romance is really specifically that kind of, like, dreary tone where it can end with an unhappy ending. Paranormal romance, I'm certain there are some that work very well, but any paranormal romance I've read, and I've read a lot, has a happy ending. And I think some people would be kind of upset if it didn't have that, right? Whereas with a gothic romance, you're kind of expecting tragedy. Tragedy comes with that kind of gothic genre, so...
Yeah, I've seen multiple publishing professionals talk about it, and it's like there are very few genre rules that are like 100% all the time, but it's like romance, your couple has to end up together, or it's not a romance. Then it becomes a different sort of story with romance in it. But like to be a romance, your couple has to be happy together, at least for the time being, at the end of your story. Which is interesting. It's always interesting to see like a hard and fast rule, and that's like so distinct from other genres where you can play around with a lot of stuff a lot more. And obviously Twilight fits the paranormal romance genre in the fact that romance is the, like, main thing.
Yeah, it's describing the story.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's always how I define it. If the romance drives the plot entirely, that's where I think gothic romance kind of gets away with a little bit more, because it is about the romance, but it's also about the environment. Like, the environment is almost its own character. So that can drive the plot quite a bit. And then, of course, with supernatural romance, you need supernatural beings.
Yeah.
Not just vampires. I feel like everyone always thinks vampires, which is, as someone who grew up reading too much Anne Rice, but werewolves, witches, demons, fae. I know romantasy is very popular. But I think what kind of sets paranormal romance aside from romantasy is like, it's not elves, it's elves in New York City. Or vampires in New York City. Like, there's this like tie to the real world. Yeah. So it's often blended with other genres. I think specifically a lot with urban fantasy, right? Where human girl meets sexy vampire at the club in Boston. And they fall in love and they're fated mates and all these things happen. I think that's kind of what distinguishes paranormal romance from a romantic fantasy, is that there's some real worlds to it. There needs to be a normal for it to be paranormal, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a city like in this book. It's a small town,
tiny sleepy town.
Works great. Yeah.
But it has to be our world. With, because that like Christiana pointed out. Like I think that's just like so right on it. It's like you have to have normal for there to be paranormal. Like, it has to be our world in order for it to. Yeah. Although I guess it has to be magical, because an alien romance would be a separate, that would no longer be like
sci-fi romance.
That'd be sci-fi,
thing. Yeah. So it's like, in the magic realm.
Yeah.
Which again, check. We got vampires. In later books, we get werewolves. I do love there's a fan theory that the Cullens are actually fae and not vampires, because a lot of their characteristics are much more like fae-like. I'm like,
yeah, like the magical powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
the like sparkliness. Like even some fae are known to like drink blood or like be creepy in that way. So that's kind of a fun thing. Is like, they're not actually, because we also have an example of that where it turns out the werewolves aren't actually werewolves.
They're not werewolves
that happen to turn into wolves. So you still already have an example of the series of like, we thought they were this thing, but they're not. So
lots of people and stories use werewolves in the wrong way just to mean wolves who can shapeshift.
And
it's not the same. Werewolves can only turn into wolves at the full moon, and they can't control it. That's what the werewolf is, right?
Yeah.
And it's like an infectious thing, right? Like it's not and this
Usually,
one is like a coming of age.
Yeah, he can't bite someone and have them turn into a werewolf, right?
No,
it's a combination of genetics and like danger. So it's like when vampires are near, the genetics like activate and then they become shifters.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't transmit it to somebody else. It's you have it or you don't sort of thing.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment to kind of talk about world building here a tiny bit. About everyone hates
world building podcast.
The world building podcast. What? But world building just about vampires, as someone who reads a disgusting amount of books about vampires, everyone hates on Stephanie Meyer for being like, they're not real vampires. No vampire's a real vampire.
Yeah.
Shocker. They don't exist in the real world. You can make up your own rules.
Yes.
And I actually thought it was really interesting. Like, also, I always crack up because this is like an inside thing. Remember when the first Victoria's Secret opened in Winnipeg and everyone was obsessed with getting those shimmer mist body sprays?
Oh, yeah. The Victoria's
I
body
do
sprays.
not remember.
Yeah.
I didn't either. I didn't get it, but I remember like so many girls in my class being
them.
obsessed with it and everything. And that was also at the time when Twilight was popular. And I was like, I think they could just walk around and be like, I'm really into Bath and Body Works. And probably get away
it's
with
true.
it.
Yeah, with makeup trends nowadays, they could totally. I'm just wearing highlighter.
Just be like,
Yeah,
it's the Fenty Beauty Diamond
love
Bomb
to hate
or whatever.
on the sparkling vampires. I didn't
But I think
mind
it's
it.
interesting.
I think it's
I
fine.
think it's interesting.
It's a fine twist. I like a twist on a trope. So it's like they can't go outside, but it's not for the reason you thought. It's because they're sparkly. And like,
it's just because they're immediately identifiable. Yeah.
I think it's fun to take a fantasy species and you can't change so much that you wouldn't recognize it as the species anymore. But you can tweak a thing or two.
Yeah, like the core thing for vampires, they drink blood, right? So it's like if you don't have that, it would be real hard to be like, this is a vampire.
Like, a mortal, drink blood, have some sort of superpowers. Sort of thing. Like, whether that's immortality or speed or turning into a bat. Like, they need to be otherworldly to some extent.
Yeah.
And I think she did that. Although the one thing I will actively hate on with how she made vampires is that they all... It's so gross even saying it out loud. They don't have blood or saliva or anything like that. They have fluid-based venom.
Yeah, venom-based fluids. Yeah,
venom-based fluids, and it's
all the liquid in their body is venom.
Gross and weird to me. But specifically, only the stuff in their mouth can turn another person into a vampire.
Yes.
So Edward can't kiss her with tongue, otherwise she would get the venom in her mouth.
They canonically only do closed mouth
kisses.
And it's not that she would have to have like a cut in her mouth because it does have to like enter your bloodstream. Yeah. So like they could, but like and also all of their teeth are really sharp. They don't have fangs. They're just like all super sharp.
Super sharp. Also. Yeah. So there were some choices like that, which I feel like she took the every time we say her name, boo, J.K. Rowling. I think she kind of ended up, unfortunately, taking that route where the story got so popular that she then went in and tried to fill all of these plot holes and explain why all these things were happening. Yeah. And just ended up making it like weirder and weirder and more uncomfortable and more uncomfortable with like every visual guide. You're like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
No one wants like.
I mean, I think it's all internally consistent though. Like it is weird.
It is.
But,
it is very internally consistent.
Which like,
but I'm like, I don't want to think about that.
Where it's like go into the weird, then like be like, no, they have like weird. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, they're horrible, creepy monsters. That's excellent.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fair. But it was just like some of it. I was like, okay,
it is disturbing.
That's a little bit of a.
It's like Yeah, or the fact that their skin is like rock hard, so if they like
they
touch
feel like
or anything,
marble
they're,
statues.
like,
They're
rock,
always cold,
rock.
which like that's
Yeah.
cool. That's fine. But
Yeah.
like the idea of them kissing and it sounding like
It
plates,
sounds so unpleasant. Yeah,
like
It's
knocking
no.
teacups together. The idea of that is kind of horrifying. So
I don't think
Yeah.
I could have a vampire partner. I would be so cold. I'm already so
Yeah.
cold all the time. That would be
Yeah.
tough.
Oh, I have
Deal
a deal with
breaker.
my whole family. When I was like 12, I was like, if anyone becomes a vampire, I'm the first person you call. And you're making me a vampire. And like, I'm not even going to ask questions. I need to be a vampire. I know it's in my destiny.
That's so funny.
I would still be a sparkly porcelain.
Didn't we renamed you vampire in our group chat? I
Yes,
think
yeah,
that's what
Yeah.
your name
the
is, right?
vampire that hangs out
Yeah.
in the tavern all the time. Yeah,
The vampire regular. That's me.
yeah.
But another trope in this,
Yes.
is often it's not just like vampire on vampire love. Like with paranormal romance, it's often innocent human meets
Yeah.
whatever paranormal thing is going on. They're thrust into this world that they don't understand, which is really good from a narrative perspective, is because they can then stand in place of the reader, right? Where it's you're introducing vampires. What does that look like? Well, if you have a main character who's already a vampire, it will be really awkward for them to be like, I comb my hair, which, as you know, will never grow back. It's at this length forever and ever kind of thing. Versus having,
I think it's a common thing in fantasy to do that. I think it can be done perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
with someone from
easier.
It's just
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. And again, I think with the paranormal, it kind of has to be, again, for that, like, human, you have to have a normal, right? Like, it's like if you have two things that aren't human, it's like, well, this is just a romance. It's no longer really paranormal.
I don't know.
You know? Like,
Say you have two vampires living in this human world who fall in love. Could you not still call that a paranormal romance?
I don't think I would. I think I would just call it, like, I feel
you
like that would
could
make it, like,
Interview with a Vampire is like the most famous example.
Yeah. But is it a paranormal
Although it's not,
romance?
it's
Like,
not
it's a
fully
story,
romance.
I think
Yeah.
you could still call it that. I don't think it's very common because people, relate more to humans. So that's why there's usually a human, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's kind of an easy way to narratively explain a strange world, and then also for the reader to be like, I'm bored at work, bored at school, bored doing whatever. I would love to randomly stumble upon...
Yeah, I want this world to be real.
Yeah.
Insert very attractive paranormal creature come to sweep me away and take care of my problems. Yeah.
It's like, not only do you get the really hot partner, but also you get this whole new world of magic. So it's like you get extra stuff. That's like a whole thing. Yeah. Which also, check. Human, vampire. We got that on from Twilight as well. This is like the quintessential paranormal romance book.
It's like monster who is actually a good person, really common in paranormal romance.
Yeah, I categorized it as enemies to lovers. Just because I think that's a broader category. It's not quite enemies as in like, I don't know, they're my rival at work and like that kind of thing. But enemy as in like, oh, this is something that I'm not familiar with. It's scary. It's not something that I should be, like, you're just intrinsically at odds because of the nature of both of your beings. Kind of, maybe it's not enemies to lovers, but more like opposites to lovers kind of thing.
Yeah. Something I really enjoyed when I was rereading, I had forgotten how much Edward and Bella, or at least how much Bella doesn't like Edward at first. Like, she likes him, but she's really irritated with him.
Yes,
she's so irritated.
They're so, like, antagonistic toward each other. I found it very funny, because I do really like the enemies to lovers, or, like, the rivals to lovers, or the we don't like each other, but we really do. I like that trope. Yeah. So I found that very fun.
And I think that's very common. Like, I think in the vast majority of any paranormal romance I've read, it's always like human girl with maybe some sort of special power. Maybe they're a medium. Maybe they're, something like that.
Yeah.
At most, they're a witch. But then they meet a ghost, and the ghost is a jerk, and then they fall in love with the ghost. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's always kind of like brooding, antagonistic, supernatural being versus sunshine human character, but who's also really sassy. So
I'm curious as to what you guys think, because a lot of people also will like lambast Twilight for like, Bella has no personality. Bella is just a plain blank slate for people to put their personalities onto it. I'm like, I don't see that. Like, again, I think maybe that's a movie book thing, because I think people complain about that more about the movies. But like in the book, when you get her perspective, she has quite a bit of personality. Like she has interests. She gets mad about stuff. She has opinion. Like, so I don't really see her as a blank slate character.
I don't know.
What did you guys think?
If I would say blank slate, but I do find her a bit boring.
Yeah, she defines herself by what she isn't, I think is the problem. It's not like, oh, I love doing this thing. It's like, oh, look at those girls doing their hair and makeup. I'm not like that kind of thing. Like, she continually defines her character by what she isn't versus what she is.
I don't remember her doing
I think
that
this may be
in
kind
the
of
book.
Yeah, I know Edward does. Like in Midnight Sun, from Edward's perspective, there's one line where he's like, she doesn't wear makeup like the other girls. But like Bella doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't think Bella actually
Maybe
does
it's not,
that.
I shouldn't say judging, but I very much got the vibe that she was like, again, kind of defining herself by what she isn't, in the sense of like, these people care about this thing. I don't really understand why they care about it. Or like, these people are doing this thing. Okay, I guess I'll go along with it because that's what people are doing. Like, you know what I mean? It just felt very like...
Yeah, like she doesn't want to go to the dance because she doesn't like dance. She doesn't really relate to...
Yeah, like she doesn't like
things
dancing.
that
She's not being like,
teenagers-
look at these dumbasses who want to dance and have fun. She's
no,
just like,
she's
I don't
just
like that.
uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where I feel like a lot of her personality
though.
traits.
It is a personality
Isn't not
thing.
liking stuff still part of your personality?
It is. I just feel like I didn't get a lot of like, I love this. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with this. You know what I mean? Like if she was like, I'm obsessed with hiking and camping or something, like anything.
Yeah, she
I
does.
just feel
She
like,
just doesn't like a lot of stuff, but there's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
a lot of things that she does like. Although I did appreciate that she cooks, which I had forgotten about. She seems to really like cooking, and I'm like, well, that's
and
a hobby.
She loves reading.
And
She reads all the
reading,
time.
yeah.
She's just very introverted. Like I kind of feel bad. Like it feels like the same thing that gets put on introverted people in real life, where it's like you're quiet, therefore you're
not. You don't have a personality.
Yeah.
but the difference is like, we're in her head.
Yeah.
Like in her head, we could explore more
Yeah.
things of like, I loved doing this. I loved going to La Push. I loved being on the beach. I loved the way the
She's
waves
not
crashed.
really
I loved the
passionate
seaweed.
about anything except
Yeah.
Edward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fair. I don't know. I still think she has a personality, so I'm on the
Oh, I agree.
mean,
I just think
agree. I still
I
think
just
she's a
kind
bit
of
boring.
see where
That's
people
fair.
are kind of getting that vibe
Yeah.
from, where it's like she
Yeah.
has a personality. It's just certainly not a strong one.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like a more go with the flow, like
Yeah.
not super.
I wish she was
Intense
passionate
person.
about something that wasn't Edward. You know, like,
Yes.
I don't know, that she wanted to do something with her life besides become a vampire so she can be with him forever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
It's a
even if it
romance.
was like,
It's a
well,
romance.
I
It's
need
like
to.
that's kind of the
But even that would have added good tension, like almost like a third character in it, right? Where it's like, do I pick Jacob? Do I pick Edward? Or do I choose to go to Stanford University to study
Yeah.
psychology, which has always been my dream kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, I don't have to pick between the
Yeah.
two of them. I could pick
I would've
none of
liked
them
that.
and like
Yeah.
pursue my dreams instead, right?
Yeah, that's true. She doesn't really have any like goals or aspirations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
as a teenager, I did not care about that. But as an adult,
Yeah,
I like,
as an
what
adult,
would I
yeah,
like
that's
this?
What do you want to do with your life, young lady?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of with the enemies to lovers things, there's also this kind of concept of like forbidden love that is somewhat, I think,
Mhm.
baked into the world building. This idea of like, can a vampire and a human be together? And that's really actually, I think, the central plot point to Twilight to some extent.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is Edward is like, I can't be with you. I want to eat you so bad. Not in a
Yeah,
fun
because
way, but
she's
in a
not only like
scary
a
way.
regular
Yeah.
human, it's like there's in the lore, there's like certain humans with blood that's even more appealing to certain vampires. So it's like
singers.
her blood is like extra delicious smelling as like an extra
Is it
complication.
to everyone? I thought it was just to Edward.
It's just
Just
to Edward.
to
I think
Edward,
other
yeah.
vampires do mention she does smell like particularly good, but like to
Right.
Edward, it's like the most
Yeah.
impossible thing to resist in the
Also,
world.
in this world, which I think maybe we can kind of tie this into another trope of just like the general paranormal world building is like secret societies, magical rules, hidden supernatural communities. This hits all those points.
Yep.
And in part of that, with like the magical rules, Edward has the ability to read people's thoughts,
Mhm.
but he can't read Bella's. So that's what's interesting is because it's like she's human, but she's special. Like she's
Yeah.
that's why it's like kind of also the extra forbidden. Like, what is she? And why can't I read her thoughts?
Yeah.
And I think that really ties into it.
In the fandom, a lot of people speculate that if he had been able to read her mind, he would not have fallen in love with her. Because it's like, he can like project his ideal girl onto her, whereas like in her mind, because she thinks all the same. Like he's so annoyed by all the girl, like Midnight Sun. So it's Twilight written from Edward's perspective, which is just again bonkers book, but it's so funny.
It is.
He is so disgusted by all these teenage girls who are like in love with him, and he's like they're so like simple and like whatever. But it's like, and then Bella's just like equally thirsty.
Yeah,
about
she's
him,
the same,
like,
but he can't hear it in his head.
He can't hear it, exactly. She's like, she's so special. Meanwhile, she's just like drooling over him in her head. So it's so funny. Yeah, that the paranormal for them almost goes both ways. Because like for him, she's also kind of supernatural because he can't read her thoughts, which is very interesting.
I do like the superpower aspect that gets delved in deeper in book 4, where like Bella becomes a vampire. Spoiler. And
shocker.
She actually has a superpower, which is why Edward can't hear her thoughts.
Yeah,
and like all
these,
we meet all these other vampires. But I like a superhero, like world building magic system. So I found that fun.
That's the best part of book 4, in my opinion, is like all the supernatural vampires.
Finding out all the different,
and you're like, oh my goodness, there's also, speaking of superpowers, Alice's ability to see the future. So one of the vampires, Alice, can see the future. That is like my favorite description of telling the future in like any fantasy description.
It's specifically in Midnight Sun when he's going through the hotel.
Yeah, and like you see how it works like from his perspective because he can read her mind, so he sees it exactly. But it's like, so she doesn't see a set future. It's like her visions of the future change based on what people's decide to do, which is just, I think, because usually, like, typically future telling is either like you see the future and no matter what, but trying to avoid that future is what causes it. Or you see the future and it comes to be in a way that you didn't expect, but it's always like the future is set no matter what. Whereas this shows more of like a free will future, basically, which is, I'm like, oh, that's incredible. I think that makes so much sense. That's kind of how I think the future actually works. So it
reminds me of like heist novels or movies where they're like, and then the super bendy guy goes into the box and we wheel him into the vault and we do this and then the security comes out. But she's doing that multiple times and being like, damn, I forgot the bag in the room. Okay, go back. No, okay, they'll recognize the jacket. Go back. And then she creates like this other narrative to like, she can play through different narratives to see what the end result is going to be.
By
Super
deciding to do
interesting.
different things. I really like it.
I enjoyed that too. I also really like the second type that you described, Emma, where the future is set, but it happens in a way that you didn't expect. And I think that is much harder to write. So I'm not surprised that like Stephanie Meyer would not choose that option because that's more difficult. And I would say Twilight is more of like a simpler plot and world building and stuff. But I mean, you can still have a really great story and not be super complex. So.
Totally. Yeah. But I always loved that. It is funny, though, that the vampires in Twilight are so overpowered. Like, people love to talk about, like, oh, who would win in a fight between the Twilight vampires and the Vampire Diaries vampires? It's like, every single time it's the Twilight vampires. They have no weaknesses. Like, they can go in the sun. Wood can't penetrate their skin. Garlic does not. Like, they have no weaknesses. And they're, like, canonically so strong, so fast.
Like, you could only rip off their head or burn them, I think. Those are the only
or both.
two.
I think you have to, like, rip them apart and then burn them so the pieces don't rejoin
Right.
together. It's like nuclear weapon or another Twilight vampire are essentially the only things that can kill them, which is, like, wild. They're so overpowered.
Even nuclear weapon, it has to like land directly on top of them.
Because radiation wouldn't do anything. It
wouldn't do anything because they have marble skin. Like it would just bounce off. It's insane.
What other tropes? Or do we have any left on the paranormal trope list?
I think one's very specific to paranormal romance is the dominant protector kind of idea of like that's like that sort of like possessiveness of like you have. Again, it's always like, I'm just a small town publisher, and then sexy werewolf man comes in and he's like, you're mine, and protects me from whatever random enemies are dragged up in the story kind of thing.
Usually because of the paranormal love interest.
Because of the paranormal love interest. It's like, well, no, of course I'm allowed to have a human as my lover. And like, it's the exact same thing with Edward, where it's like, he's constantly defending Bella from vampires because other vampires are like, how strange for you to have a human pet.
Yes.
Right? Like
And then you have Jacob
James'
doing the
whole
same
thing is just
Yes,
like,
yeah.
and then Jacob does the same thing. It's this idea of, again, I think it kind of feeds into the fantasy of like, I almost think part of why it's so frequently included in this genre is because the idea, some people would be like, oh God, I'm just like thrust into this world with vampires and werewolves and demons and fae and like all these crazy things. And I'm just a human. How could I possibly survive? And it's like, enter sexy man to take care of you. So now now you feel more comfortable seeing Bella explore that world because you know Edward is watching her sleep every night like a creep. So.
Yeah, and there is something too, like, not everything that people, like, find alluring in a fantasy you want in real life. Like, there is something alluring about the fantasy of a person being like, let me take care of everything for you, you will have no troubles, I will, like, control everything in the world around you so that you don't have to lift a finger. Like, there's something,
you never
like,
have to make a decision or feel discomfort.
Yeah,
like,
and it's like, in real life,
nice.
absolutely not. I don't want that at all. But, like, sometimes in a fantasy, it's fun, right?
I think as a teenager, I also really liked the idea of someone being so obsessed with me.
Yeah.
Mentioned before, sort of feeling invisible or like I don't really stand out much as a teenager. And then reading this book and being like, yes, I want someone to care this much about me.
Right?
Yeah. I want to be the center of someone's universe.
Yeah.
That important.
And sort of, I'm sure I defined a lot of romance by media I was watching too, which is like,
totally.
you know, not realistic. So it's not really until I was an adult that I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't want that.
That'd be horrifying.
Yeah. And like, that's one of the only reasons why I feel like it's kind of a little bit more problematic with the way that Edward and Jacob, because they both are kind of sucky.
Yeah, they both do it
different ways.
Very possessive.
Yeah, and like I said, like I think as adults you can very easily be like, okay, well, one thing is fantasy, but in real life, like, not cool. But the only time that I think it kind of becomes problematic is because when you're younger and you're still learning about relationships and the world and what's good and we do internalize so much from media where, you know, you don't necessarily think about why that's problematic, and then that can be emulated in your real life. Like, even speaking from personal experience, I'm sure that I miss some red flags with people being overly possessive or controlling, because it's like, well, but I've seen this in media. Is this not how romance is supposed to be? And now looking back, it's not just Twilight, like all sorts of media does this. But it just, because you learn some not correct things about the way love should be from media.
Even things about like traditional chivalry kind of rub me the wrong way now. I'm like, I don't feel respected. By some of the things.
Yeah, I feel objectified. Like, you're not treating me like a person, you're treating me like a possession. Even though you're being very polite, it's like nice, but like if I get like the biggest ick if someone like insists on standing behind the chair and pushing it in for me while I sit down. For some reason, it's happened a few times. And I'm like, I'm just not going to sit down. I just stand there and wait for them to leave.
Yeah,
I've done it a couple times. I literally just stand there and I'm like, I can sit down by myself. Thank you very much.
So funny.
It was interesting actually getting married, because I actually started thinking and discussing with my husband a bunch of the things that you do at a wedding and what we actually wanted to do. Like,
and it's so
do
weird.
we want my dad to walk me down the aisle? What does that actually mean? Like, where does that come from? And we ended up deciding not to do that because we're like, this is actually really like sexist and like I'm not a possession for my dad to give away to you, you know, like, so that it was really neat confronting some of those just preconceptions, like, this is respect, this is what respect looks like. Oh wait, no, it's not.
It's like, but why is that what it looks like what's the root there? But and like you said, Emma, fun to fantasize about sometimes. Like, if big muscle mommy vampire lady wants to tell me that I'm hers on paper, I'm down for it. In real life, I'd be like, okay.
No. Let's talk about boundaries.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Let's have a discussion.
That's kind of intense.
A good song title, love song title. Let's talk about boundaries. I can hear a Taylor Swift song.
Yes. Yeah, and so again, that definitely gets checked off by Twilight, is the protector trope. And I mean, again, I think a reason why that works in can work in literature and not in real life is in literature you can clearly explain, no, this is actually because he just loves her and is an anxious little freak.
Yeah.
Like in Midnight Sun, he literally goes through all of the things that could happen to her when he's not there. He's like, what if a meteorite comes down and like kills her? What if like a spider bites her and it's poisonous? And like you see, he's just like this anxiety riddled which I mean, I love Midnight Sun for like the ways that it shows you how like just unhinged Edward is. It's so funny.
That's why I still love Edward so much, despite his problems. As someone with a generalized anxiety disorder, I'm like, me.
Yeah, totally
also,
realistic. Yeah.
I love him. Yeah.
yeah. But it's like, but you can like, you know, you can establish on the page, oh, it's because he loves her, and like that's what it is, and it's not the like deeper thing of like, oh, he sees her as an object or whatever. Whereas in like real life, it's not that like,
I think
cut and dry
that's why very specifically it's quite popular in paranormal romance. Is because you're already suspending belief for vampires, werewolves, ghosts, whatever. You can kind of suspend your belief on that too. Like you're already kind of letting your guard down a little bit. Yeah. I don't read a lot of traditional romance, so I don't know if it's super common in traditional romance. It might be just as popular. But I think part of why it's so persistent in paranormal is because you're already kind of being like, no holds barred. Like, we're going a little nuts with this. Let's go a little nuts with this. So.
And generally, like, a very dangerous world.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's more to
that
protect.
Really,
there's
that kind of
legitimate things to protect somebody against than, like, than in the real world, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I think we could keep talking about this for forever, but I do think we'll have to stop at some point because we are actually not immortal vampires. So unfortunately, against all of our efforts, let's hop on over to Proprietor's Pick. Allison, what is similar to Twilight? Did you pick 50 Shades of Grey as the
Definitely did not do that. You know, I feel like vampires are back.
They are
I've been seeing
kind
a
of,
lot more vampire novels.
Sure.
So for my pick, I went with Immortal Dark by Tigest Gurma. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. And I have a very, very brief description, but I think it says it all. The cruel prince meets Ninth House in this dangerously romantic dark academia fantasy where a lost heiress must infiltrate an arcane society and live with the vampire she suspects killed her family and kidnapped her sister.
But of course, you know, he didn't actually do it. It was a misunderstanding.
And he's got
he was trying to protect
in
them,
real
and they
life. Yeah, he's really a nice vampire.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Or if he killed them, they deserved it because they were secretly evil, and he was just protecting her. I love it. That sounds great.
You know, you got the vampires, and you have dark academia, which Twilight is not, but I love a good
and a vampire fits so well in a dark academia.
It really
setting,
does.
Like, truly. Yeah.
Yep, so that came out just last year, so check it out.
Nice.
If you like Twilight, you might like that too.
Awesome. And with that, we are at last call. Here are some concluding thoughts and questions on things that we think you can take from Twilight and apply to your own world building. Allison, what do you have for us?
I just want to reiterate something we briefly mentioned earlier, that you should not be afraid to step away from very established tropes, particularly about fantasy species. So, for example, vampires don't sparkle in other stories. But in Twilight they do, and that's okay. It's okay, you guys.
It's fine.
It's totally fine. We promise.
Again, just because teenage girls like glitter doesn't mean teenage girls are cool. Yeah. Leave them alone.
They're the coolest.
Yeah.
So there is a point where if you step too far away from something, it no longer becomes that thing anymore, and you might just want to name that species something else, like something unique, which you could also do. There's nothing wrong with that either. That's also cool.
Yep.
So Myers vampires still drink blood. They are inhumanly beautiful and strong, but I think there's a fun exercise to be had here about how to make your own fantasy races unique. Myers went in a sort of ridiculous direction with the sparkling, which is also fine. But you can take inspiration from that and be like, okay, dwarves are short and stocky and they live underground. Why do they live underground? You know, maybe they were, like, driven there by people above ground, or maybe they die if they're in sunlight. Maybe your dwarfs are vampires.
You know,
vampires. Like, vampire dwarfs.
Vampires.
You know, like, if you ask yourself why to some of these, like, fantasy species tropes, you could come up with something fun.
Yeah, like, what else could cause this? Like, vampires don't go in the sun.
Why?
What is a different reason other than that it kills them? Yeah, it's a super fun deviation. Yeah, no, I really like that. I think that's a really good. And also, ridiculous can also be camp, which is its whole own genre.
We love
and,
a campy
fun
story,
thing, right?
Yeah.
So sparkling in the sun is so camp. That's
so camp.
Excellent.
Most camp.
Yeah.
Christiana, what do you think we can apply from Twilight to our own world building?
So I think that you shouldn't be scared about fantasy fulfillment. Don't worry, specifically, especially when it comes to romance, especially paranormal romance. Is that too cheesy? No, there's no such thing as too cheesy in this genre. It's going to be someone's thing. But I think that's also the case for really any genre. People like the genres they like for a reason. Don't be afraid of, as I totally agree with what you were saying, Allison, about this idea of don't be afraid to twist a trope, but also don't be afraid to just lean into a trope at the same time.
Yeah.
There's a reason why people read it. Tropes exist for a reason, because they're consumable and because they're marketable and because people like it. So if you want to write a romance about a possessive vampire who's obsessed with a human, there's 50 million stories like that. Don't worry about it being cheesy. People specifically seek that out. So don't stress yourself too much when it comes to some of these genre fictions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I will also I had a thought based on that and Allison's thing too, of talking about twisting tropes and stuff. If you think of vampire tropes, the original vampire Dracula was not attractive. He was a gross, creepy monster who was horrifying. And then Anne Rice actually flipped that. Was what if vampires were really handsome and attractive? And even that, but at the time, was a huge departure from regular lore. Oh yeah, no,
Dracula was very charming. Nosferatu.
Charming. Oh, sorry, Nosferatu is what I'm thinking of. Yeah, which is one of the OG vampires is a buck-tooth.
Yeah, vampires in traditional folklore are literally
monsters,
kind of zombies. Yeah. Almost they're literally rising from the dead too.
Yeah, and yet now it's we think of vampires oh well, of course they're hot and attractive, and it's well, that was also a departure from a trope at one point that people probably thought was ridiculous, and yet now it's a staple. So your trope could be the next thing that lives on forever. For my advice, I'm going to kind of bring us back to some things we've touched on, but some of the more problematic aspects, which is think about what your world building's impact on the real world is. We often talk about world impact, real world impacting world building, but it can go the other way. There are some problematic things in Twilight, especially, particularly and mostly revolving around her treatment of the Quileute tribe and the fact that they are a real indigenous group whose stories she took and twisted and presented in a different way. Also the fact that it's the indigenous boys who are turning into animals, and then the vampires use animalistic slurs towards them and call them mutts and dogs. Problematic. The fact that when they start shapeshifting, they all cut their hair, which in indigenous cultures is really important. Also problematic. The fact that they're imprinting on children in later books, which is less creepy.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even touch on
also
that one.
Problematic.
Yeah. Also creepy,
that's a problematic in both ways, because it's not only is it kind of creepy from the adult imprinting on the child, but also the way it works is they're kind of enslaved to that child. It's they also lose their free will. So in general, that's just a weird, strange thing.
Yeah.
So we've talked about it before, but especially with cultural groups that you are not a part of, be so respectful. Don't take other people's shit and twist it for your own thing.
Yeah. So certainly if you're not a part of that culture, those stories aren't necessarily yours to tell, and you have to be so careful with where you're drawing inspiration from. But if you are a part of that culture, I think a really good example is Thomas King's One Good Story. That one, it's a collection of short stories that follow native oral traditions and storytelling, and he tells it kind of from a modern perspective. That's a good example of taking oral traditions and creation stories and retelling them and refitting them into a modern context. Really phenomenal. I suggest everyone read it. But that's because Thomas King is himself indigenous, and that's his stories to tell. Yeah. Right.
And it's not to say either that you can never use anything from outside of your culture, but you have to do it in a really respectful way. You have to do it with involvement of people in that culture. We've beaten to death. You need beta readers, and that's because it's important, though. We keep bringing it up because it is an important thing. You need to have sensitivity, and taking a origin myth or origin story and essentially lying about it in your book and saying that it's a different story than it actually is a prime example.
When it's a very real creation story. Yeah, a very real story from a very real community. That's gross. No, even if it was made up, it would still be kind of weird and gross and fall into this
if you made up,
if you made up a
indigenous-
tribe or something, which would still be
Yeah.
weird and
Still
problematic
be
in
weird,
a different
but
way. Yeah.
At least
So-
maybe not impacting an actual community.
Yeah.
But still weird. So just be careful with that.
Yeah, so definitely I would say learn that from Twilight, is like, don't copy the problematic aspects of Twilight. And then also, specifically for Twilight, hate on it for reasons it deserves and not for reasons it doesn't
Yes.
deserve.
Exactly.
Always be accurate in your hatred.
Be a thoughtful hater.
Be a
is all
thoughtful
we're
hater.
asking.
There we go. I want a sweater that says thoughtful hater on it. And that does bring us to closing time. Unfortunately, we have to close. We would love to stay longer, but you know, these really hot vampires are certainly not going to seduce themselves. So, yeah.
What a
Or
good problem
werewolves,
to have.
if you're a Jacob girly like myself. Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern. If hands-on world building is something that interests you, make sure you check out our world building workshops. These are bonus monthly episodes where we build a different element of a world every session, and they are currently available for our patrons at our $5 and up tiers at patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern. Check out our description for a link to help a Palestinian family escape Gaza. You can also find us on our website, worldbuilderstavern.com, which has links to our TikTok, Discord, and our bookshop.org page, where you can buy books we talk about on the podcast, like Twilight, which will support us and an indie bookstore. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye.
Get out of here.